it comes to blacks. I think that Martin Luther King and a lot of people, they love to quote, evangelicals love to quote, you know, I have a dream and all that stuff is great, right? But they don't want to quote the Martin Luther King that said, you know, when he talked about integration and he said, I feel like I'm leading my people into a burning building. When he started to realize, wait a minute, black people need to go ahead.
Now, you got to stop right there.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I want you to stop right there, because when we look at segregation, right, and when we look at what's happening right now with the pandemic, right, people have become so dependent on other people, right. When integration happened, because I think when people, and it's important point for us to talk about this, because I think when people shoot this down, I don't think they really understand the whys to why when integration happened, black business suffered, right? Because during that time, you know, black people and white people could not work together, right? Everything was segregated, right? You couldn't get those type jobs, because they kept everybody separate. So black people were forced to have to buy from each other, right? And when integration happened, and I know this is an argument, and only because I'm a history buff, you're a history buff, you know, and these are some things, man, people don't like to talk about. But because of integration, you know, monopolies happen, capitalistic mindset happened. It's just like somebody who has a business and say, okay, well, I'm making $2,000, you making, I'm making 10 grand, but you making 3 grand, but your life is a whole lot better with that 3 grand versus my 10 grand. And I want to take that 3 grand and I want to give you $500 because I want to make you dependent on me so that I can manipulate and control, right? How do you feel? Because I understand now, as a black guy that has a business, I'm just not going to do business with a person just because they're black. Because if I need to buy a set of tires for my car, and you selling tires and your tires don't look good and you ain't got a good price, I don't care if you black. I ain't going to do business with you.
It's got to be good business,
So talk about that, because when I hear a lot of people, man, talk about, man, you got to buy black. But you know, because I remember, man, I was trying to support this brother, man. He was selling Dickies at the time. My son 19 now, but at the time he was having a new uniform. And, you know, we had the Dickie outlet down off of 95 that we could ride down to. The shorts there, man, were $21. Right? You selling shorts were almost $40. I think it was $38. Right, for a pair of shorts. Now, the argument that I hear all the time is, you just should give it to him because he's black. No, that's stupid to me, because I'm a businessman. That don't compute. Right? Unless I know him. Unless I know him, he my neighbor, or I'm mentoring him or something like that. You know, that's some other type of. But on a business standpoint, I'm just not going to give you $40 when I can get a half price. So talk about that dichotomy, and why the argument shouldn't be against a person that just want the best deal versus them having a skin. Now, why is that important?
Yeah, you made some good points. Number one, I think the mindset, as you know, we always hear these terms woke and, you know, conscious and things like that. And those terms a lot of times are thrown around. People don't really know what goes into that. Like I tell people that I'm awake, I'm being awakened, I'm constantly learning, right? So I'm never at the place of where I feel like I've arrived, where I'm just so conscious, you know what I'm saying? I'm being more and more consciously awakened to certain things, right? So it's a process. So when a black person is becoming conscious or woke, or these terms, when they're starting to understand, if they don't already understand how economics, group economics and economics and just society, the economic gap between whites and blacks and all other cultures and things like that, when they start to understand that, I think number one, the mindset should be number one to strategically say, look, my passion is to support black folks. That's number one, right? Doesn't mean that every time I go out out the store or online, I'm just only going to support Black people, right? Because number one, it's a process. You don't just wake up. We don't even have outlets like that to where, I think it was Killer Mike, if you watch his documentary on Netflix, even just in the city of Atlanta, he was like, okay, I'm only going to support, he was showing a point, I'm only going to support buy things that are Black owned. And it was so hard for him just in that city, as big as Black, metropolis, all that stuff. It was hard for him to even survive, just getting, he had to walk because he couldn't get the white rented car, you know what I'm saying? So as much Black businesses and things are opening up, that we still have a lot of progress. We still have a long way to go. And so I think the goal for every Black person should be, number one, to say, yes, I want to support Black businesses. But number two, like you said, the key word is business. So we want to have good business, and we want to be responsible and respectful